So I think a very important part of our life in academia is research. And when we talk about research, we are basically talking about research methods in a language like English. Dear learners and others, I think you are wondering why we are having this panel discussion today. It's very important for us to understand how research will be conducted in a language like English. When we talk about research, we are basically talking about this kind of an activity in the sciences. Well, let me tell you, we need to be very careful regarding the methods in English studies, specifically research. Well, this is the topic for the panel discussion today, and we have with us a very distinguished guest, Professor Dr. Dibyakusum Ray from the Indian Institute of Technology, Ropar, Punjab. Let me tell you quickly about Dr. Ray. He happens to be a scholar of eminence and also somebody who has a lot of experience in publishing and in other paraphernalia. Welcome, sir, to the show.
Thank you so very much. And it's a beautiful day outside. I'm in a beautiful campus with great people. I couldn't have been happier.
Yeah, the pleasure is ours.
A very warm welcome, Professor Ray. It's wonderful to have your company, and I'm sure we're going to learn a lot with Sir's insights.
I hope
so a warm welcome
again.
Right. Thanks for joining us today, sir. There can be many questions, but I would just try to bring it to this. That is, when we are talking about research in English studies, like we have books like Gabriel Griffin's Research Methods in English Studies, which is very important for a PhD or a doctoral candidate. How do you see yourself as a researcher in English in the present scenario, sir?
Well, Arnab, thanks very much for the question, but it's also, as you must understand, it's extremely complicated. I would say, to put it in a single word, I feel myself to be obsolete. Obsolete because right now, as your audience must be knowing as well, English studies as such, especially in a country like India, is going through a very severe change. Actually, it's not only about this country, it's all over the world. The way we used to understand the canonical versions of English research as such is dying out. Now we have several other sub-disciplines which are holding on to their domain like never before. Like, for example, digital humanities, like blue humanities, like plant humanities. In our country, there is also IKS, Indian Knowledge System. So the reason why I say it obsolete is we need to reinvent ourselves constantly, and that is the rule of the game right now. The way I have been trained, the way the people who have trained me have been trained in their youth. This system, this methodology, and since methodology is a word that you yourself have used while asking this question, that is going through a very serious overhauling. And right now, I, like many peers of my age, and many of my friends, we are trying very hard to grasp to whatever floating blades of grass we can find and try to reinvent ourselves while keeping our root to the extent possible on the ground to the very core of English studies, to English research and stuff like that.
Oh, that's a wonderful way of looking at it.
Yes.
So I was just wondering, when we speak about research in English particularly, is there any method for doing research in English that differs from the social sciences?
Definitely. And again, it's a very germane and a very pregnant question, so to speak. There are so many answers possible out of this. Research methodology. I, myself, being an English researcher for the past several decades, I may say, I always had a problem with the way research methodology, the word, has been used or has been, let's say, to a certain extent, enforced on English studies as such. Because in majority of the cases, majority of the institutions right now, all over India, we have to, as English people, we have to share space with other social science disciplines too. There, the scientific version of a research methodology definitely works. However, in English literature and in English studies, the sense of methodology, I would argue, is very, very different. Allow me to give you an example. There is no method, for example, of reading a book and trying to make meaning out of it. There are several researchers in English studies all over who work on field work, who has very data-centric work, especially in ICAS and stuff. We have had a discussion like this for a very long time, but barring that, classical English studies does not have a methodology per se. The methodology, if there exists one, is more of a one-to-one, person-to-person, let's say, legacy of transference of knowledge that generally happens between the researcher and the supervisor. Having said that, right now, all over India, as far as English research is concerned, there is also a new trend of publication. Now, the publication pressure, the publication demand is way more intense than we used to think it was. And for that, definitely, research methodology is necessary. How to write, what to write, and most importantly, what to not write, what to edit, what to mercilessly edit, or just cut down. These are all the things that I think can be learned through research methodology. But once again, these methodologies can only be taught from a personal perspective, from the researcher, as far I understand, not exactly through a classroom. A classroom, maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3 or 4 classes, but that would be enough. As far English studies is concerned, we need to make a more personal approach when it's concerning research methodology.
Right.
True, that's true. I think Sir has given a very nice idea about how talking about the methodology, which may vary from English to other disciplines. So, yeah, that's a very important point that you have made, Dr. Ray. Coming to that, and that's the point I would like to come to, what do you think is the situation of research in humanities in premier higher education institutions in India? For example, you're yourself from IIT, one of the IITs in India. So when we are talking about research, because we have a kind of a situation out here where you have a PNP situation, either you publish or you perish. So what you would say as an insider in a very big important institution like India, like IIT Ropar, or any other kind of an institution in India, what kind of research is going on and what is the situation out there, sir? Over to you.
Thank you so very much, Arnab, for the question. It's very important, and I think the audience deserves to know about it. So basically, performance pressure, as I said, is very high right now. Even in a so-called, I don't want to use the term non-performing, because really there is no method of gauging one's performance. If it is only numbers, then it's a different thing. But then again, how much book you have read in your entire life, how much knowledge you have accumulated throughout your life. These things can never be easily judged or easily managed or easily measured. Having said that, this tangible measurement, or should I say, from as per the US academia is concerned, demonstrable capability is definitely a very big thing right now. In my own institute, the peer pressure, the publication pressure is very high. I never thought while getting a job or starting my career in some other college, I never thought that I'll be having as many publications as I have now, which is not a very large number. But then again, I did not think that I would be having this many. While it does give a certain sort of accomplishment, and also let me add that then again, these publications are not mine alone. All publications, in majority of the cases, and I'm no particular about this, the other research scholars are also your compatriots and your frequent collaborators. So it's more of a shared knowledge system through which these publications come through.
Well, I'd just like to, I hate to stop you here, but do you have the PNP scenario, the publish or perish scenario at your prem institution? Is it somewhat like that still?
It's very much like that, actually.
Okay.
So publish or perish, definitely. I mean, in a metaphorical sense, your esteem, your self-esteem, your, how should I put it? Your importance as a scholar, your standing as a scholar will definitely be diminished if you do not publish constantly. Now, in English studies, I'm pretty sure both of you know very well that publications are hard to come by. Not only that, in core English or in core English studies, journals take a very, very long time as compared to something, say, economics. If any economic scholar is listening to this, I do apologize, but then again, that's not my intention. It just takes, the peer review processing is just way, way long. For example,
and in English, we have a one-man army kind of a thing going
yes,
on.
absolutely. I remember a student of mine, and I started writing a paper in 2022. The paper is supposed to come out in 2026, so it's 4 years. 4 years is also the span of the entire PhD, and it's, as it feels, half of my life.
Yeah, so
Exactly.
it's a lot of toll on your psychological senses.
Absolutely, it does. And it does take its toll. However, I would also like to look at it from a positive perspective. The positive perspective is that the kind of psychological or scholastic dynamism that it gives to you, the things that you learn being in pressure, the things that you learn about finishing your paper at a timely fashion and going through the 100 nitty-gritties which we did not use to pay much heed before, like citation, like bibliography, like putting the whole thing in a certain sectional periphery, 1.0, 1.1, 1.2. All of these things are definitely, they need to be learned. But then again, I definitely feel, and this may create some controversy, but I have to say that I definitely feel the measurements that we are going through right now as scholars of English studies may be a little unjust. We should be having a measurement, a methodology of measuring ourselves by our own, by a system that is more comfortable to us. It may still be competitive, but the competition should be fair.
So, sir, I was wondering, what would be the right way in which our students and all of us as scholars could publish in the best or the most reputed journals? So, what are some ways in which we can publish in the best journals?
Thank you very much, ma'am, for this question. And to be very frank, I'm extremely happy these questions are coming towards me, because these are the things that I want to tell to as many people as possible, and probably through this as well. So now, here is the thing. Journal publication is not rocket science. Far from it. It's actually a simple task. It's simple, especially if somebody is going through some sort of a mechanical approach towards publication. By mechanical, I do not devalue it. I say only this, that whatever scholasticity you need to bring in the paper, they are all welcome, but putting them into some sort of a domain perspective, putting them into some sort of a, how should I put it, a step-by-step manner, that is where the mechanism of this thing comes in. While keeping that in view, it also makes it very clear to us that the good journal and bad journal is only a matter of perspective. Not only that, as many people would know, you know it as well, that this whole measuring the journals by their merit is also extremely malleable, in the sense, if one journal is in Q3 today, tomorrow it could be in Q1. Impact factor also changes. Then where exactly do I draw the line? Absolutely. It's very dynamic.
And volatile, as we can see.
It's extremely dynamic. It's very volatile, which is why I say to the answer to the previous question as well, it's to a certain extent unfair too. But then again, how to publish? The publishing is actually pretty easy. You just need to write the paper, and in order to how to write the paper, in what language, in what, as I say, the domain-based approach, part by part, argument to argument, going like a ladder forward. The best teacher in this are actually two. The first is your supervisor, if you are a PhD student. The other is, of course, the journal that you are targeting, the journal's whole idea of what exactly they are publishing, what sort of papers they have published before, how exactly they are, let's say, how exactly they are shaping themselves up, what sort of topic are they publishing. All of these things generally come into account. But my ultimate suggestion is even more radical. My ultimate suggestion is that if you are a novice, or say a sophomore, at writing papers, writing research papers for journals, then my suggestion would be to write it and send it and be rejected. Why? Because every peer review, and it's true for majority, 99% of the cases, they give very, very big reviews, even if your paper is not up to the mark. And that is precisely how we get to learn. I got my first journal published after 3 rejections. Every time I learned only this much, a degree. And then I tried to incorporate it in my paper. Then I again got rejected. All that. Yes, it definitely requires some steeliness of the nerve. But then again, as the audience definitely will be knowing, that failure is a habit. You just need to get into the habit of failure, and that is absolutely
say
Absolutely.
in a metaphorical sense. That's true.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's a very important observation from your side, an academic like you. Yes, coming to that, this panel discussion is very germane for our MS students, because after that they have a PhD to do, because it's the research that starts after this, right? So Dr. Ray, I would like to hear from you. We have PhD students who are coming from research. And, we have this kind of a tendency to tell them to publish in Scopus or in SCI index journals, which is not a mean task. I mean, it's not child's play. We know that. Obviously, you're the best person to talk to. Do you think what kind of, is it a burden on the part of a student, a PhD student or a researcher, to compulsorily publish in only Scopus or SCI journals? I mean, why there's a craze out there? Could you just tell us something about that?
So far, all the questions that you both have asked to me, I have given more or less of an ambiguous answer. I couldn't keep my fidelity to one part of it, yes or no. And here, I definitely would be taking a side, and I would say, no, it's not a burden. It's a good thing. Why? The simple reason is that the MA students, especially being in masters, which I did not have the opportunity of, but I would very much like to see the next generation students having that opportunity. If you start trying and failing in the publication business early on, like masters, how old are you? 22, 23? It cannot be better than that. Because also we need to understand that in all the IITs, I'm just talking solely because of the employability as such. In IITs and in any central universities, even in foreign countries, a master's paper in a Scopus indexed or a reputed Taylor & Francis Sage, call it whatever you want to, at master's stage, it's a very big deal. It shows that do not take it as a burden. It's quite the opposite. It's an opportunity. Not only that, ladies and gentlemen, there is this thing which I generally say to my students: nobody writes a paper by reading. Everybody writes a paper while reading. In other words, while you are writing the paper, you keep researching parallelly. You go through one book, you go through other book, whatever you find germane over there, you just simply bring it to that paper. It's a continuous process. It's not there is no big rainbow out there that you'll be finishing that rainbow of scholasticity and then you'll be starting writing papers. It's not possible. If that habit is inculcated into a master's student from the very beginning, I really do not see what is wrong with that. I would say that is the most beautiful thing that can happen to a master scholar. And just imagine going forward in 2 or 3 years, what fantastic researcher that would make. So yes, I would very much say, yes, it's a good thing and it's not a burden at all.
Okay, so it's a big no from your side. It's not a burden. So I think Professor Ritu Sharma would be really, my good colleague over here would be really, acknowledging the fact, because we have master dissertation students over here. I have 2 students who actually came to me 2 days back asking how we are going to publish. So I was just giving them some idea about that. Yeah, over to you.
So I agree with you totally. And
Yes.
Dr. Ray, this is actually a wonderful insight, because generally students get scared. They're intimidated,
True.
by the word Scopus or SCI, and that holds them back from coming up to their total potential. So this other perspective of taking it as an opportunity surely is a better way of looking at it. And as supervisors, it's
Yes.
our duty to handhold them and
Yes.
take them along.
And if
All
they
right.
have this in the beginning of their career, as Professor Ray rightly and adroitly points out, that would be good. Yes.
Yeah. So this other thing, as Dr. Arnab just mentioned about publish or perish, this phenomena, this is so prevalent in all institutions today. What would be your final take on it? That will one actually perish if he's not able to publish that well? Or how is it? What is your take on this? That publishing, is it that important? And you die out? And of course, it is actually an academic accomplishment, you know, when you see
Right.
your name in a reputed journal
True,
or
true.
something. But how important is it? Like, yeah. So
Okay.
public perish, you know, this thing I
Yes.
would not want to know from you.
Yes.
The way academics is going, unfortunately, publish or perish, especially in India. I would tell you an anecdote in here. Only a few days ago, I was serving as the associate chair in some student and some DC of a student. DC is this doctoral committee, or things that we have in IIT. The research student also had another DC member who was from Germany, and seeing the concerned student, who was a young woman of maybe 27, 28, she has got 2 publications. Many of IIT scholars do, even more actually. The German scholar looking at her CV was astounded. Said that you have 2 journals at this age, not even going into a job, just getting your PhD degree, not even that, and you got, that's awesome. Because in Germany, we really do not have this requirement. And I know for a fact that in many countries, many Western countries, such pressure is not there. Indian academia right now is extremely, how should I say, focused on this perspective of this publish or perish thing. I mean, I can criticize it all that I want to, but then again, it's not going to change. It's here to stay. It will remain like this. I would like to answer your question, ma'am, in a different way. I would say, let's delete the second part from our life, or perish. Publish. And why am I saying that? Why to delete that other part? Because my experience, and trust me when I tell you this, trust anybody who's listening to this right now when I'm speaking to you, it is easy to publish. It just needs a few failures. That's it. No journal, every journal's, let's say every journal's induction, induction of your paper, of your research into that journal, irrespective of however famous or however high impact factor or quartile it is, it's randomized. Nobody can say from before that this journal is too good or too bad for me. Absolutely not. Aim for the standard journal. If you want to aim higher, definitely punch higher. Go for the best journals that there is. Dedicated to literature, the highest impact factor that you can go to, and I should know about this because I research about it all the time, near about 1.95 or something like that. Dedicated research journal.
Even 2.5 is a rarity, I would say.
Absolutely. And if you want to go over there, definitely go over there. Who knows it will be published? Question is how? Simple. You will just have to follow the beats, the rhythms of writing. Please understand, journal writing is a mechanical process. The process is mechanical. Your research is not, but the process is mechanical. The better you are accumulating the mechanics within you, the better you'll be able to produce the paper as per their liking, not your own liking, to their liking. Sometimes you may even feel that while editing as per as the reviewer's comments, you are actually truncating your research. You're feeling horrible. You feel like a murderer. But that is not precisely what you are supposed to feel. What you are supposed to be feeling is a sense of accomplishment because you're following somebody else's order to make your journal paper presentable. And when it gets published, you will never perish. Nobody will perish. Actually, that is my guarantee. Publishing is easy.
Right, Dr. Ray. Yes, I think Professor Ritu Sharma, you would be agreeing with what Dr. Ray said about publishing and perishing. It's not about perish in that way, but we have this adage in modern academia that if you don't publish, you're going to perish. But then I remember my own experience. I mean, when I was about to apply for an MA in fiction at University of East Anglia, Norwich, UK, they always tell us to enroll after we go there into a writing school, where they give us the nuances of writing and research over there. I think we don't have much writing centers in India in that way, but then I think we can also have that in our masters, where students will be able to have the nuances of writing from the very early point of the time. That was a wonderful discussion, and I'm sure my good colleague over here and we had a wonderful time, and also our audience Our main stakeholders are our students and also anybody who is interested in the nuances of research in English studies, because we have humanities everywhere. You have English as a paper in any college, in any lane in India, because I think you need to have a good knowledge about economics, mathematics, and also language, without which anything is not possible. So thank you, Dr. Ray, for joining us for this conversation. And I'm very sure our main stakeholders, the students of MA English, because after this you have the research coming on, and they have their dissertation writing, at least in the ODL wing that we have at CU Online over here. And also, why not the online students, because they can go for research, they can sit for the net examination, provided they have the criteria of 55%. And we have students in our office hours who are actually asking for us from the very beginning about the pattern of net and how can they do research. I had one student yesterday in the office hours from 2 to 3. Thank you, sir, and I'm sure we had a wonderful conversation with you in the panel discussion, and thank you for joining us at CU Online, coming to us, giving your valuable time, feedback, and we wish to see you again over and over. Thank you, sir.
The pleasure is mine entirely. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for being
Thank
with
you.
us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.